Well, it's not just the QCs, 60-odd QCs and the thousands and thousands of ordinary Victorians fighting to stop the Andrews government legislation. It's also facing serious resistance from deep within the Premier's own bureaucracy. The Herald Sun has revealed the Victorian Equal Opportunity and Human Rights Commissioner, Ro Allen, raised concerns about the legislation, allowing Victorians to be targeted based on their age, gender or religion, even their political beliefs. For his reaction, I want to bring in now the Shadow Treasurer, Victorian Liberal MP, David Davis, joining me now from Melbourne. David Davis, thank you for your time. You're in the upper house too, so you're particularly important to talk about the process behind this legislation from here on in. Is there any hope of stopping it or dramatically being able to amend the bill? Where are we up to with those crossbenchers?
Well, the crossbenchers, the three Labor voting crossbenchers had supported the bill coming into the chamber, and I think tomorrow morning, in a very controversial move, will vote with the government to use a rare and obscure urgency provision. Never been voted on, at least since 1996 that we're aware of. It's always been a provision that's used for sacking a local government or something like that, where action has to happen very quickly. But the government will misuse this provision, forcing the bill into debate tomorrow. We've got amendments, a series of amendments. There's 18 important amendments that seek to put checks and balances and some control around it. It can't fix the bill. The bill has got too much wrong with it. And we will fight and we will fight and we will fight in the chamber to stop this bad piece of lockdown legislation going through. The Premier wants it because he wants the powers to lock down at will. He wants more powers here. And we think this will compromise the state's recovery and rebuild. Businesses need certainty. They can't have this repeated and churn of lockdown. They can't plan. They can't actually begin to hire people again. So we think linked with the recovery is a need for certainty and predictability, and this bill won't provide it. In fact, it's a lockdown bill, and the Premier will use it again and again and again to lock people down. So
I made the point at the top of the show, David. Of course, if this was the Senate in Canberra, urgency provision or not, you couldn't introduce something in 1 week and try and debate and pass it in the same sitting period. You'd have to send it off to a substantial Senate inquiry. Certainly something like this, we would be talking 2 to 3 months and submissions would be heard. Are you surprised by the tactics that are going on here to ram this through? And those that have read it, like the QCs, like you, like the Human Rights Commissioner, the level of concern they have is extraordinary, but the measures the government are using to go around that concern and ram it through are also fairly unprecedented.
This is a bad process. It's a trashing of democracy in the Parliament. That's one part of it. The failure of the Scrutiny and Acts of Regulations Committee, the Watchdog Committee, to actually properly scrutinise this and conduct a full public inquiry on this bill is a scandal. And the government's tactics in trying to force this through are just wrong. The truth is the Law Institute, the Bar Council, the 60 QCs that came out with a set of clear concerns about these provisions. These are very thoughtful, middle-of-the-road people who understand democracy and understand how the law should be operating. You know, there's a provision in this that allows the government to have the power to enter people's homes without a warrant. We think that's wrong. We think there's the inability to disallow is wrong too. We'll seek to amend that. The Parliament should have control of this. You know, if there's a pandemic declared,
David, let me just interrupt you. As you're going through these measures, I just want to underscore to people at home, I've dealt with many years of terror legislation in Canberra. Suspected terrorists have more rights than Victorians will have if this passes the Parliament. It is that grave, David Davis. The Premier hasn't flinched. Despite all this criticism, the crowds and now people like the Human Rights Commissioner and others, he hasn't flinched Why is he so confident about passing this and not losing the support of people in the state?
He's very arrogant. He's very out of touch. He doesn't understand the damage that's been done in Victoria. I mean, we've had that terrible trifecta, the terrible trifecta of the longest lockdown in the history of, all around the world, and the most deaths in Australia. Victoria is the place where the impact of the pandemic has been most severe. And then the impact on businesses and families has been most severe here too. I mean, it's not a coincidence that our unemployment rate is now the highest. These are all the direct consequences. Now, they've mismanaged the pandemic. They've been untruthful. They've covered up. They've never once released the health advice. They say, oh, we're doing this on health advice, but never once have they released that formal written advice. It's actually a scandal, and you can see why people are so unhappy about it. Their businesses are still at risk. He's going to lock us down further. That's why he wants these powers. He wants the powers to declare the lockdown himself, and to, then there's insufficient checks and balances in the bill. It can just be used with almost no check or balance. It's a frightening piece of legislation. There's no question.
Well, good luck with the fight ahead. We will stay across it here on Credlin. If I need to get down there at the protests again and take the word from the street, I will. David Davis, more strength to your arm.
And we'll keep fighting. We're not going to stop. We're going to fight every step of the way, because this is such bad legislation. It's such a tremendous risk to Victoria and to our basic democracy.
It's a huge issue. It doesn't matter just in Victoria. It matters right around the country. Thank you for your time, David Davis.